Good morning and welcome to Morning Coach Today. I am so glad you're with us. As you know, my name's JB and we are rocking and rolling this morning, ready to take it on. It is September 13th, 2021, episode number 4,358. It is a Monday. And you know, we love Mondays. Why? Because it's when we get organized. And really, that's what it's about here. We've got the Get It Done Now program. We are rocking and rolling with the place to get the coaching that you need, that annual plan that's really going to make the difference in your life. And obviously, we're coming through September, October, November, and then the planning month of December. You are in the right place and the right time to really get ready to make 2022 an amazing, amazing year. And the way we do that is by taking a couple topics and really working them. We have a new section that we're building on our website called the Interactive Content Compass. And the compass is the direction you're going to go. And this is going to tell you exactly where you're at and what we're working on week by week, 52 weeks of the year, 12 months of the year, and really give you the information that you need to make sure we're on track as we holistically work together to better each other's lives. That's what it's about, right? And so this month is really about health. It's about fitness. It's about well-being. That's really what it's all about. Hey, listen, if you don't have health and well-being, it's really hard to enjoy all the fruits of the things that we're building together. And so I want to give you something that's going to help you this week. We've got a big week planned. We've got a lot of great energy coming. And really, the idea is to start to understand some deeper aspects of health with today, understanding this idea of why do we train for the mirror or why we shouldn't, okay? It's going to be a big one. Book study tomorrow. We're on part 5 of Roy Sutherland's Alchemy. We're getting to the end of that book. It's a pretty big book, but it's about thinking differently. Wednesday, a big one. You're going to love this. How to get out of a funk. I get a lot of questions about that, so I want to go over that. How do I get out of a funk when things aren't going the way I want them to? Thursday, we've got Ask JB. That's when I answer your questions. Friday, we've got Deliberate Practice in Health. What the heck does that mean? Well, you're going to find out Friday. Saturday, we've got Slowing Down the Mind and Working, a new program. What does subliminals do for that? Another deep one. And then Sunday, Love Your Body. And that's our win the day for our professional golfers out there. And we have a few that are really working with some tournaments this week. So it's really an exciting time. But today we're going to get into it. And we're talking about this idea of training for the mirror. So where does this come from? Well, back in the day, I met Mike Lee Kanarick, and I had just started Morning Coach, and it was struggling a little bit. Like, we were going up and down, and I hadn't really figured out how to monetize yet, and the podcast was doing real well, but I personally wasn't doing that great. In fact, the podcast was top 25, but I wasn't making any money. Back then, nobody cared what a podcast was. Nobody really knew what it was, even though I had a huge audience. And so there were no advertisers that were coming on board to help. And so I literally would speak at Blog World. And back in the day, that was Gary Vaynerchuk, Tim Ferriss, some people that really exploded on the scene. And I was keynoting at the same time. There's another gentleman named Steve Pavlina. He was doing this blog called Personal Development for Smart People, I believe. We were kind of known in the world for our particular areas, right? And I'll never forget this picture that I had taken, and sometimes I use this at events, of me at Blog World getting ready to speak. I weighed about 125 pounds, it looks like. It looks like I'm a heroin addict, really. I mean, my hair's all thin, my body's thin. I had no strength at all. And part of that came from the stress of trying to build that business back then and having it fail around you. My book wasn't selling, things weren't working, and I was just getting really thin. Some people gain weight. I actually lost weight. And part of that was the nutrition, right? I wasn't eating a lot. And I was a pescatarian at that time, trying to be a vegetarian and just eat fish. And I was really wasting away. And back then, a buddy of mine said, hey, why don't you get into MMA? It was just getting started, and I went to a Kung Fu school. And so I did Kung Fu for a year, and it really wasn't my thing, that traditional martial arts. I really couldn't get into it. But somebody said, hey, you need to go meet this crazy Israeli commando. And I went over to this guy's gym, and I walked in the door, and the first thing he said was a very rude comment. I won't even repeat what he said, but it tested me a little bit. And I was like, what is up with this guy? And I mean, here's this commando, crazy, strong, just brutal Israeli commando, right? And I'm like, oh gosh. And he's like, come back for a class tomorrow, 8 o'clock, be here in the morning. And so I showed up for that class in the morning, And I'll never forget, meeting him and starting to train. And here we are 15 years later, actually transformed my body, my mind, everything. My business blew up. A lot of it I give credit to Sir and, transferring the way I think and the aggressiveness and the things that I do and the way, I've really built my body and my business. And part of it came from his idea that he said, you never train for the mirror. So I know the title of this is Train for the Mirror, and every year we talk about this, and it sneaks in once in a while because I think it's one of the most important things we can do is that we don't train for the mirror. People that train for the mirror will never be satisfied. That's what Sir told me. He said, you're never going to be satisfied if you sit there and you do barbell curls in the mirror. You're never going to be satisfied. But if you train for something, he said, one day you'll look in the mirror and you'll be extremely happy. And I think that lesson alone that I'm giving you today from Sir is something that can literally transform your life. Because there's so many people out there that are trying to exercise. And there's a huge difference between exercising and working out and training. Huge difference. When you're training for something, you're going to get yourself in better shape than you can ever imagine. And if you're doing functional training, like trying to increase speed or do something that's going to be like me, technical back in the day with Sir. I don't train as much with Sir anymore, being 52. I'm not in the Everglades. I'm not swimming across lakes. I'm not taking those body punches and head punches that I did. But I do his online stuff, and I work with him in that manner, and I keep up with my skills. But man, for years and years and years, he had us train for conference every year. And so you're training to get yourself in shape so you don't get beat up, right? And so, man, did I look good in the mirror because I was training for something. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying you have to go train with an Israeli commando. What I'm telling you is there's some things that we can do that we can start training for that will help you. So let's go through a few that are a little bit easier. The one that I love is a train for a 5K. Now, why do I like a 5K? Well, 5K is 3.3 miles. I can do it in right around 25 minutes. And the reason I like that is because I can work to get my time down. And really where I would like to be is 22, 23 minutes. So when I'm running every, 4 to 5, sometimes 6 days a week, when I wake up first thing, take Neo out for a walk and come back and go for my run, I'm focused on that 5K time. And I'm looking down at my Apple Watch and I'm really working hard to get that thing down to 7 minutes. If I can get it down to 7 minutes, you're talking about a 22-minute 5K. That's better than, I would say, 99% of 52, 53-year-old men. I'm sure it is, And so I'm working to get my 5K down. Now, you may train for a couch to 5K, which means you will just eventually run a 5K and try to do it under 30 minutes. Everybody's different. But if you're training for something, then you're going to do it. So the first one I'm going to give you an option of is to train for a 5K. Just get yourself up and get going. There's apps and things like Couch to 5K. It's really great. The other one that I'll give you is Dawn just put one up, which was a burpee challenge. And Dawn put it up on Facebook and got some money together. And basically you do so much, so many burpees every day, and then you'll give that money to a specific charity. That's another thing you can do is find a challenge of some type and commit to it. Do it for some charity or something. It's a great way to, again, what are we doing? We're trying not to train for the mirror. So what are you doing? You're doing a challenge that's allowing you to get fit and make things happen. Another thing that I really like is steps. So it was really, in vogue a few years ago, and then like everything, it kind of gets out of the way. It loses a little bit of its fashion. But, the whole idea of a Fitbit, the whole idea of steps, I think is a great thing to try to increase your steps. Did you get your steps today? Not the fake stuff, where you're trying to cheat the system, but actually really doing it. We in the NFL this year, it was pretty great in spring training to watch them use GPS technology and know how much people were working and how much people were working out. Some of my friends in the industry were telling me that coaches were watching that GPS data and they knew how much work they could do and how much work other people couldn't do. So it's like the Whoop device. So tracking stuff like fitness steps, tracking your HRV, trying to get your heart rate down. That's another thing that I do. So not only I do for a 5K, but how do I get my resting heart rate down? If you want to do a little test of something, this is pretty cool. Just take your hand and make a fist, okay? Make a fist. And then make that fist 120 times in a minute. Make it right now. 120 times. Your hand gets tired really fast, right? Well, then do it 40 times. Nice and easy. Goosh, goosh. Think about that as your heart. Think about that. So if your heart's going 120 beats a minute, man, it's cranking, right? It's cranking. It's working. And we don't want our resting heart rate working. We want our resting heart rate to be going goosh, goosh, goosh. Strong heart. Cardiovascular disease is still the number one killer. We talk about so many other health aspects that if we can get our resting heart rate down a little bit, then it's fantastic. It's going to last longer. It just makes sense, right? So that cardiovascular training is so critical. Now, remember, we're not doctors. We're not trainers. We're not here to treat or diagnose. We're talking about things that we do and things that you can do to better your life. So having that, that tracking ability of your HRV, of your heart rate, of your steps is a step in the right direction. You're training for something. Again, I mentioned SIR, so maybe you are in martial arts, or you're doing something with classes or something in that nature where you're going to a conference or you're going somewhere. You could maybe do like your class reunion in a year or 2 years is coming up. Using other things kind of as motivation. Now, I know you're not training for the class reunion, and that's kind of a motivational thing, where training for a conference is a little bit different. But if you're doing something physical, moving towards something, and that goes right into like group classes. So if you're in CrossFit, for example, and you're getting ready for the CrossFit Games, even if it's just your own CrossFit game, at least you're doing something moving towards it. Now, I will tell you, be careful with CrossFit. It's gotten so popular, but you got to be careful just with the kipping and some of the explosive movements like kettlebells over your head. You just got to be careful with some of that. Anytime you're training, make sure you're working with the right professionals, especially when it comes to weight training. When you start doing resistance, and really, in order to have full functionality, you need cardiovascular training, which is the internal, and then you need that external strength training, that resistance training. And you're not going to get big. You don't have to get big. In fact, I'm trying not to get big. I'm trying to stay nice and thin, because you golf better without being really bulked up. It's a healthy balance there. But lifting or being able to weight train, it does make a difference, okay? So having some resistance in a group class is good. Just be careful how you're doing it. More form is more important when it comes to weight training than it is the actual weight. Making sure you have the proper form is so critical to avoid injury. As Sir always says, a wounded soldier is a dead soldier. You can't fight if you're injured. So we got to make sure that our training doesn't hurt us. So group classes can work. How about fun runs, right? You get into a fun run, or you get into a Tough Mudder, or those things are starting to come back. Training for that, putting it on the calendar and saying, I'm going to do it, is going to make a difference. We've got, people here like Dr. Paul Kilgore's a triathlete. He does the swimming, the biking, and the running. I'm not that big of a swimmer, so I don't think I'll ever do a triathlon. But that's why I like a 5K, because it just fits right into the flow of what I'm doing. It's quick, it's fast, it's efficient, and it really works for me. It gets it done. You could do some challenges too, like some of my friends here do the Peloton. Now, I have a Peloton bike, but I don't do it. I have a friend that's done over 380 days in a row of the Peloton. And a lot of times we'll be in a meeting, because he's the president of our HOA board, and he'll say, I can't go to dinner tonight because I got to do my Peloton, right? So having those types of challenges are really important. And finally, there's some strength challenges that you can. We've got a couple people that are bodybuilders that come here to Morning Coach, and that's another way, is to kind of, how strong can you get? Can you get a little stronger? We've got some heavy lifters that their whole objective is to lift heavier weights. So again, you're training for something. That's the key. We don't just want to go to the gym and work out. We don't want to go to the gym and exercise. We want to go train. And I want to really solidify that this week, that when we're doing things, we are not just working out. When somebody goes, I'm going to go work out. Well, great, go work out. We're training for something. And what that something is something you got to pick, something that you're excited about, because most people are training for the mirror. And what I say, if you train for the mirror, you're never going to stick with it, and you're never going to be satisfied. But if you train for something, and that's something you got to pick, train for something, you're going to look in the mirror one day and go, man, I am feeling awesome. And that's what it's really about. Okay, so let's get out there and have a great Monday. When you get a chance, check out the compass. It's going to be an interactive thing that we're continually working on. So you've got your journal, as you know. We're building that up for 2022. It's going to be great. But then you're going to have this interactive curriculum. Really, we call it a compass because it's your direction, and we're going to cover so much, and you're really going to be able to know where you're at. And if you take a month off, that's fine. You can just plug right back into this system that's really going to help you with the growth, give you the energy, and also help you develop into whatever it is that you want to develop. Again, your uniqueness is what's so awesome about this program. We have so many people from around the world, and that's what it's about. So let's go have an amazing day. Let's put some great energy out there. And remember, let's not train for the mirror. I love you. Be right back with you tomorrow with our book study, Alchemy, Part 5 tomorrow. But go, have a phenomenal day.